This is Prime Sports NASCAR on Prime Sports Network as we reach another end of a playoff stage. That's it. We're going to get through 6 races as of Sunday, if we can get through Sunday with all the rain that's expected, but that's another story. Talladega, though, guys, you can't draw these races up any better, really. And we've talked about this before. And last week we went over the schedule, and it's great that they're going to have 6 road course races in total next year. But I mean, why don't they just add one Talladega and one Daytona too? I mean, these races are too awesome.
Yeah, especially the playoff with everybody, the points mattering so much. That's what made this one really from start to finish, at least the first 2 stages, so good because those guys needed the stage points because that could make or break somebody moving on. So that was big. I thought the final stage started off like I expected. It kind of got the high line train single file, and then you had that caution and brought it right back to normal again. So yeah, I agree. It's these races mean so much. I think Daytona being the final regular season race, perfect fit. Talladega being where it's at, perfect fit. So yeah, I think right now they're 10 of the 36 races next year on either road courses or super speedway. So they're trending that direction, which is it's a good thing.
It's and CJ, it's just and as much as we like the road courses too, it's these super speedways, Talladega, Daytona, that provide the most exciting racing at the end. You know, you wind up like the top 10 of this race, and we're going to show the clip, by the way, of the final 2 laps in a second, and we'll do some analysis. But when you take a look at the drivers that were in the top 10 at the time, I understand. You could tell because we've talked about this before. When the announcers, the announcers are rooting for other drivers because they have it in their voices, and it's so obvious. And I get it. I would have been the same way if I didn't pick, and we all picked Hamlin. If we would have been Harvick, then I would have been so upset that he's the only driver of the 10 drivers that's in the playoffs, that's a name guy, that's already got 1 million wins, and he had to win the race. So I understand why there was a little bit of disappointment that Di Benedetto or any other driver didn't figure out a way to win the race. But that aside, it's still just an awesome way to finish these races, and we've been just spoiled over the last couple of years with tremendous finishes at these tracks.
Yeah, it's consistent at these tracks. And so you're always going to get a good race at the finish. Number one, Daytona 500. Everybody wants to win the Daytona 500. The super speedways just set that up for the last couple of laps. But I think Eric's right. If you're going to add more of these to the schedule, put them at the right spots. So Daytona, the second time that we saw it being so exciting, it mattered because it was a cutoff before the playoffs. This race this past week mattered because of the stage points and where it was in such an odd round of the playoffs with the races that we've got, the road course coming up. Just by themselves, they are exciting, but they can get relatively pedestrian, I guess, as they go along if they're not in the right spot in the schedule. And I think that really made the difference with these last 2 super speedway races that we saw. But going back to last week, I mean, Chris Buescher, Cody Ware, Quinn Houff, all in the top 10 heading into the last 2 laps. When have you ever seen that happen? And when will you ever see it happen again?
Yeah, I mean, if Buescher wins or Jones wins, Di Benedetto, I'm all for that. I mean, I think we've talked about this before. These other Huff and these guys, I mean, that's just silly. I don't think it's good for the sport, to tell you the truth, if those guys win. But to see a Buescher win, a Di Benedetto win, Jones win, I think that's something that we would have liked to have seen as well. All right, I tell you what, let's take a look at the final 2 minutes. We will offer analysis during it, and then we will also obviously comment after, and then the rest of the show we'll spend previewing the race coming up, the Roval race, and again talk about the cutoff. Once again, 4 more drivers eliminated from the playoffs. There'll be 8 left. So right now, let's take a look. All right, so So yeah, so they're the right now nothing's happening, but in a second we're going to start to see them separate a little bit. Yeah, do you really need that on the board right now? And by the way, the two guys in front, we didn't even know if they were going to be able to finish because of the gas situation. I thought there was no chance for Denny to win this race. And Jones was the one that really screwed Buescher up. Because Buescher would have been pushed by Byron nicely. And then the opening. I mean, when I saw that opening open up for Hamlin, I was like, holy crap, I can't believe that just happened.
He's parted. It's kind of like that moment where you give the dominant quarterback a wide open receiver. It's like you just gave that to him, and Hamlin took it. I mean, he puts himself in position for a reason. And you look again, Toyota, 2 of the top 3 there. I think that's, for not having anybody as much drafting help to get that, was pretty big for them.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure if anybody mentioned it. I didn't hear it on the broadcast, but when they were talking about the penalties and the yellow line rule, nobody ever mentioned, I think, that Hamlin would have won either way. So he didn't advance his position, but he still finished. You would have given it to DiBenedetto at that point. DiBenedetto obviously was behind him at the finish anyway, would have been eliminated for advancing position, all that good kind of stuff. Either way, Denny Hamlin wins this race, whether the rule's there or not.
And why is that? He would only have been penalized like a spot?
Well, yeah, because so he was coming. So DiBenedetto was getting penalized because he pushed somebody down behind the yellow line. The controversy, or the question after Hamlin crossed the finish line, was whether or not he was going to get a penalty for advancing his position. And if you got DiBenedetto finishing ahead of him, because of the block, I don't think Hamlin would have technically advanced his position. If you knock somebody out, I don't know, maybe then it goes to the third place driver, depending on how many spots of a penalty that is. It seems like, in my mind, it would have either been Eric Jones or Denny Hamlin at that point, because Ty Dillon was on the fence of getting a penalty there too. So I don't really think that the yellow line rule really had an impact, other than poor Matt DiBenedetto losing his second spot and dropping all the way down to 21st.
Just imagine. I mean, he was upset the way it happened. He would have been even more upset had he won the race and they took it away from him.
Yeah. That would have been a disaster.
Yeah. And I wish it's hard to do, because you don't want to officiate one lap, the last lap, differently than 205, whatever the was.
Why? You think it should be like last lap free for all? Go ahead and may the best man win.
At this point, yeah.
Why not, right?
You get out of the controversy, because I get the controversy of the yellow line rule during the rest of the race, because there's usually 40 cars all jammed into one. You're going to have people, like they said, they're going to block into the infield if they can. But if you look at this last restart, there's legitimately 13, 14 cars really that's fighting for the win. There's so many cars that are wrecked behind there that they're just riding it out. So going below the yellow line, you're not going to be forced up in front of 20, 30 cars. You're only 5 maybe. So I feel like the yellow line rule at that point becomes mute. Just let them race. And then the blocking, that you're going to get. It's just the nature of the speedway package. They're always going to block.
Yeah, I don't
That's just
understand
part of
that.
it.
So
Just-
what is this a penalty because of the track? I mean, what is this blocking thing? Yeah, it's the track penalty.
Yeah.
The specific track.
It's a track penalty. Yeah, you go to Phoenix. I don't think there's a yellow line rule at Phoenix. You're going to have guys racing all the way down in the apron. Yeah, it just happens to be Talladega, Daytona. There are a couple of tracks where they've got this
as far
yellow
as the
line.
blocking.
Yeah, and the speed and so like if you block below the line, the apron's flat.
I get that.
Come back up,
yeah.
So they don't want you to go from say like 200 miles an hour on the flat, and then when you come back up on the banking, you're going to lose it. There's all hell will break loose.
Except that Hamlin didn't.
No, he did a great job.
It shows the quality. Yeah, and it was a good situation. He was still exiting 4, and it's still relatively flat, but because you're going to get blocked. It's such a the speeds. You're not going to, in a normal track too, if you block the way DiBenedetto did Hamlin, he would just wreck you. There'd be no, hey, you're blocking me, get out of my way. On this track, you got a good chance you might get caught up in that wreck, and it could be dangerous. So that's why you see the blocking, because they're trying to cut the momentum, hoping somebody's going to lift or go below the yellow line, knowing I'm forcing you out of bounds, basically. So to me, on the last lap, they're all going for the win anyway. Just get rid of the yellow line. Just, hey, if you're going to go below, if you're going to be that daring, go below it. Or if you're going to get blocked, then you might get turned, and you're going to think twice of doing that again. Just like that old climbing the tree theory. You're going to go as far up as you do until you fall, and you maybe don't go as high next time. Maybe DiBenedetto doesn't block that much next time. I mean, he was clearly, and I thought NASCAR sent a message this weekend because of that. I mean, they didn't used to call that a lot for the blocking, but DiBenedetto got popped. Logano twice got popped. So
now
I thought NASCAR was trying to send a message.
The time when DiBenedetto was called for the penalty in the block, when was that point again? Who did he block? Byron?
Was after, wasn't it?
Yeah, for DiBenedetto's penalty. It was it was coming off of 4. He, I believe, I'll pull the replay back up on my end. He was blocking the whole. I want to say he was pretty well blocking everybody.
There were 2. Yeah, there were 2 cars he was blocking, and Hamlin was coming up from 6th, basically, or 5th at that point.
Oh, so that's when he dove down
the whole handful. Yeah.
So he moved down to block Byron. Byron forced his way back up, and then he got forced to the top line ahead of Jones, and then he swerved back down and just tried to block all 4 of them. But Hamlin's already, because of the block on Byron forced his way back up, and sparks were flying. So Hamlin had no other choice, just dove below it all.
And and late, it seemed that, like I said, I think that Jones, and I understand what Jones was trying to do. Don't get me wrong, but it was a bummer for Buescher because he's being pushed nicely by Byron, and if Jones doesn't move up, there's no doubt Byron is pushing Buescher past DiBenedetto. There is just no doubt. There was more than enough time for that to happen. But Jones got up there, and I think it was just a matter of, I don't know, maybe Jones just isn't, he probably didn't time it right, or, maybe he just didn't have the handling, or maybe he's not exactly the greatest driver at these tracks. He doesn't have a great record. So what did you think Jones did wrong in that spot, if anything? I was just looking at it again, just as you were saying it, and I see what he just did. And you could probably, if you look at it again, Eric, what happens is he was already behind DiBenedetto below. He was like, I'm going to move up. And then he went, nah, I'm going to move back down. Then he went, nah, I'm going to go back up again. And that's what screwed it all up. If he would have just went with his first thought and moved up at that first time, he would have probably been pushed by Buescher perfectly, but it was the delay. I'm not sure. Let me go back down. Let me go back up, and that's what screwed it all up.
Out tricked Benedetto a little bit. So being in second, I paused it at a minute 25, and you could see what he was trying to do was break the draft from the Benedetto. He didn't want to push him, break it, slow the Benedetto's momentum, and what he was doing was trying to make the Benedetto choose. Like, I'm going to go high. I know you're going to block me, but I've got the momentum because I backed off of you. Now you don't have anybody.
Okay. Yes. All right. And just looking at it again, a couple of quick things. I was noticing Di Benedetto when they were coming up to the final lap and he saw Byron on the outside. He decided he was going to block Byron. Now, what he should have done is let Byron go, because Byron was by himself. Nobody's behind Byron, and no way Byron had enough energy to fly by Di Benedetto. And even if he did, okay, now you're probably in a catbird seat now because you got Byron ahead of you. You can figure out a way to get around him. He decides to go up, and when he did that, that also kind of, that kind of made things a little bit uneasy at that spot. But also for him, because he was in a really good position, and that began, I think, the bad decisions for Di Benedetto. And then, by the way, the last one, which was when he cut off Byron at the end, which is probably really where he got the biggest penalty, because when he really shot down and knocked Byron out of the way, that's really what I think was the most egregious one. And then I noticed the Buescher penalty, which was stupid. I mean, compared to everything that was going on there, you gave Buescher a penalty for coming a little bit close to Elliott and moving Elliott a little bit further. I mean, come on. I mean, if I'm Buescher's team, I'm really upset that they gave him a penalty on that with all the craziness that went on there at the end. And as far as Byron, yeah, I think that there was really nothing. I mean, I think Byron has, I don't know, do you think he has just as good a chance to win or a better chance to win if Di Benedetto doesn't come fly down and screw him up?
I think he's got a better chance of winning because he had so much momentum there. When you push him down onto the apron, you see all those sparks. That's momentum lost. I guarantee you he lifted there, even if it was just for a split second. So he's losing a little bit of momentum there. I think if Di Benedetto stays high, Di Benedetto maybe finishes second or third, but Byron's got enough clearance that it's probably between him and Hamlin.
So what do you think Di Benedetto should have done?
I don't know.
I think you got to try. The Benedetto is, at that point, you knew it probably wasn't going to work, but you're trying to force it. But what's frustrating, I think, for the drivers racing with him there is going back and watching it again. Is he's like that. He's at the complete top lane, and he's like that guy on the interstate that's in the fast lane that thought last minute, I need to get off at that exit, like right to my right, and I'm just going to cross everybody. That's exactly like Byron was an innocent bison. He's just running the low line,
what
staying
the
away
fuck
from it.
is that? What are you doing?
And he came across like, I mean, if you watch that replay from like a minute 26 to like a minute 30, he went from the top and just basically turned left and came all the way down. And it's like you went down the banking, like you're riding a wave.
If this was the old days, and we talked about this last week with the lack of driver anger at each other. If this was the old days, as soon as that race is over, Byron's getting out of that car and he's just going right at Di Benedetto, going to kick his ass.
I'd be furious. And Hamlin probably would have too if he didn't win because watching it, Hamlin's the low line. He was probably going to push Byron to the win, or at least push him out there and then duck out and try to side draft him. But yeah, I mean, Di Benedetto went from the cleared up by the wall to all the way down to the low line. And that's egregious. I agree with that penalty. It's like you can't be doing that. That to me, I get it's blocking.
He overthought the whole I mean, again, going back to one lap to go when Byron was when he wanted to cut him off the first time. If he just stayed where he was the entire last 2 laps, because he still had a driver pushing him. If he just allowed the driver, I forget who it was, to push him, I think it was Jones, just keep allowing, don't worry about anybody else. You got somebody pushing you. He could have made his move and around the final turn and still had a really good chance to win that race.
Yeah, he just didn't play it right. I think that's the I guess not. I would say for the lack of success, maybe, of being up front. Like Denny Hamlin, I don't think would be pulling those moves. He would somehow finagle his way to, if I'm pushed out here, he's always thinking ahead. Like, maybe I need to be behind somebody or position myself. I'm not going to block from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
I need to position myself. I think he just got, I mean, come on, he's winning the race. He's never won before come to the last corner. I think he just maybe freaked out. Like, I got to block everybody. This is my race.
Yeah.
And he took everybody else in the process.
Yeah, it's
but,
too bad.
I mean, like an IndyCar rule, you're allowed 1 lane to block. You block 2, you're penalized. I feel like NASCAR almost needs that. Although granted, they're still going to over block. You almost at this point need to take points away if you want to stop that. Money's not going to affect anything. No. But I mean, it's like Di Benedetto, he crossed the finish line second and he took the finish away and got it right here. You end up 21st. What does that matter to them? They're not in the playoffs. No. But if you take points away somehow, like they're still fighting for a top 16, like positioning there, which for bonus, take 100 points away or something crazy to stop. Like, look, this blocking's out of control. You get 1 lane and that's all you get. If you block twice, we're taking you to the tail end of the lead lap, and we're taking all your points away for the race. Something like that might get their attention because that's just amateur almost. Yeah. That's egregious. Like going from the top to the bottom you're going to hurt somebody that way. And that's the other factor. Some of these wrecks we saw, I thought NASCAR said we were going to keep the cars on the ground. And Kurt Busch lifted, Kyle Busch lifted. I think Almirola, when he hit on the backstretch, lifted a little bit. It's starting to get a little dangerous now. It's like we're tempting fate, I feel. These wrecks are big, and people like to see danger, but Kurt was lucky because he kind of hit like Newman did, and he went up. And it's at some point.
What is it that they're not doing right, NASCAR?
Keeping them grounded. There's got to be some way to keep them grounded.
Yeah, the flaps, for whatever reason, that have.
How does that affect the actual race?
Years.
It shouldn't affect the race. It shouldn't. It just somehow you've got to figure out a way. Maybe slowing them down more. I don't know if it's the speed factor because
what they can't do is screw up with anything that has resulted in what we've seen over the last couple of years with these finishes.
Oh no!
So whatever they're going to do, make sure you don't screw that up.
And honestly, it might make it better if you slow them down. I think because going 200 and upper 190s is maybe that could be a contributing factor.
Well, the drivers don't want to get thrown in the air like that. So what is it that they're saying? What's their input?
They're not happy about it either. They're kind of just staying out of they don't want to get fined, like say something dumb. But a lot of them have said they don't like going to these super speedway. The closing rate,
I mean,
they don't like.
I understand. We get that, sure.
But the safety, they're starting to get a little concerned. I mean, especially after the Newman incident. I mean, they all feel invincible. Luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had a death in NASCAR since Dale Earnhardt. But the way these cars are lifting, you are going to kill somebody eventually. Because like Newman's lucky. You're going to get these wrecks that I saw Sunday. I don't think look much different.
Well, is there anybody? So is there somebody, whether it's an individual or I don't know, somebody making a stink about this?
I don't know behind the scenes.
I don't want to hear it afterwards. All right. Oh,
No.
Now we're gonna do this. Yeah, we hear that a lot. It's sort of like what happened to Earnhardt. Oh, you had to wait until Earnhardt passed away for you to do all these safety, deals. So I don't want to hear that. If there's some way they could fix it and it's not going to impede with the racing, then just fix it.
I guarantee you, they analyze every accident from every way to the sun, and they're looking at these cars that are getting off the ground, and they're looking at the reasons why and the circumstances that put in them. I guarantee you the amount of hours spent on Newman's accident alone has had resulting impacts in the next generation of car that's coming out. And similarly, they're going to look at these ones too, and they're going to figure out ways to make tweaks to what they've got.
And the car comes out next year.
Yeah,
the new
2 years.
2 years.
Oh, 2 more years
because of the pandemic.
Yep.
By the way, it was crazy that Buescher and DiBenedetto still had gas.
Yeah.
Now Elliott was trying to make sure that because he was in a playoff situation, I'm assuming that's the reason why he was careful. It still worked out for him. I mean, he was there at the end and was still in a good position. But I mean, especially Buescher, he had two laps more, or less of gas, and that was surprising, wasn't it? I mean, that's. I
was expecting them to stop on the back straight or start coasting and pull out of line. To be honest with you, it was surprising that they made it that far. Yeah, very surprising.
And not only they make it that far, they were the leaders.
Yeah.
Usually in a draft you could save a little bit, but that was my fear. I'm like, they're going to run out of gas 1-2 in a corner and just come to us. Because if you're on the banking, it takes more fuel. It moves around in the car that they're going to run out of gas and create all kinds. My mind was like, oh my God, somebody like sixth on back is going to win this thing. Just watch. They're going to run out of gas and take everybody out. But I was amazed. Yeah, was it lap 149 or something? 147?
149.
The make it that far says something. That was crazy. But
and Hamlin still won sixth at
sixth.
in the last lap. So, and remember, it was just a few years ago that we were complaining nobody ever comes from behind in these races to win anymore. You either got to be first or second, and if you're first, you're in a good position. No one's going to get around you. So that's what we're saying. Whatever they've done, and they've got this new car coming out, don't screw this up for these races because they've been great.
Yeah, and everything they would do would be more stuff we don't see. It's going to be something like CJ said, flaps, something that when they turn, they get spun is going to keep them the gravity holding them on the ground because that's what's happening. They're lifting on impact of the wall, which is. Yes, they're hitting the wall hard. I don't know if it's the safer barrier lifting them because it's a soft wall. It's the speed hitting the safer barrier is a combo of both. Something is causing, if you notice, it's all the same. It's the back end's lifting. And like Newman, the back end lifted and he turned the wrong way and he got hit. And again, that safety, like Newman's been an advocate behind the scenes for years. And what saved his life was actually the Newman bar that nobody even knew existed until he wrecks that. Is just this extra steel bar inside the roll cage that LaJoie's car hit him and it didn't penetrate where his head was. So that's a great safety feature. Now it's just how can you keep him grounded in a wreck and not change the racing, which I don't think it would change the racing. But now how can we keep them when they hit the wall from not lifting? Even the slightest bit, because even the slightest bit, you get hit from somebody else. Because the big fear is these cars are traveling at 200 miles an hour. If you get hit and you lift too high, what happens if they get over the fence? Then you've got a big problem. So
I mean, now it's okay, but in the next year or two, that won't be a good deal.
No, they've got to do something. But there's enough smart people to know that there's going to be a fix to this somehow.
By the way, your boy Jones finished second again.
Yeah, how about that? Hey,
200 points. Oh, that's right.
No,
you don't get those 200 points.
4 top 8s and 5 races in the playoffs. Like, where did that? 3 top 5s? Yeah, who would have thought that?
Just keeps rubbing it in.
Yeah.
Every week.
Like that. Yeah, swap him out, and Custer was 31st.
Yeah, 31st. Yeah.
Here's Custer's playoff at 12th, 14th, 23rd, 16th, 31st, and the guy that I took out was 4th, 22nd, 3rd, 8th, and 2nd. Yeah, it's
probably like a 400-point difference.
Yeah,
something like that.
And he's a free agent. That's his problem with NASCAR right now. Like, this guy, look what he's doing. He doesn't have a ride still, and the way the music's going to stop is, I'm not so sure he's going to have one anymore.
That's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I hope so. By the way, CJ, you've got 2 wins in this playoff stage. So Hamlin got the win after Kurt Busch previous week. You gained another 300 points on me. You're getting close. And there's so many points out there that there's more than enough time left, because they're going to get even bigger after this one. Still 4 more after this. So what is it, 5 races to go now?
5 races left.
5 races left. All right. And before we get to this race, the Roval, let's get to the news of the week. So what's going on, CJ, with some of these drivers? Not the biggest names, but Bowman, DiBenedetto, and so forth.
Yep. So it was confirmed that DiBenedetto did get his extension. So he is signed with Wood Brothers through next year. Penske is signing Austin Cindric, though, or bringing Austin Cindric, I should say, up from the Xfinity Series. He's going to run a couple of Cup races next year, and then he's going to take over DiBenedetto's spot at Wood Brothers in the following season. So what is that, 2022? So
DiBenedetto already knows that he'll be driving next year for another ride.
Exactly right. He's going to be back in the exact same situation for the 3rd year in a row. When it comes down to this time next year, looking for another ride. Hopefully he's got one by then.
At least he's got another year.
Exactly right. At least he knows now, kind of where the exit door is, and hopefully he can figure something out, whether that's Penske. I don't know. Kozlowski only signed a 1-year deal, right? Yep. with Penske. Yep. So there's a potential that he could move into that seat.
Go out there, win a couple of races next year.
Exactly right. So it's all up to him now. We got Daniel Suarez coming in with a brand new team. I forget who actually bought the team, but he's going to be running number 99.
Single team?
And then Alex, single car team.
Does that mean it's going to be another, he's got another team, but we're never going to hear from him kind of deal?
I don't know. We'll see. They got a partnership with Richard Childress Racing, so we'll see how tight that partnership is.
So it's a better team. It's an upgrade.
I think
they've got some money. Okay. Yeah, they've got some money. Yep.
Yep. And then Alex Bowman is shifting over to the number 48, and the driver of the 88 for the future is TBD.
It could be Jones.
Could be Jones.
Or it could be who? Boyer or Larson?
Boyer.
Larson.
Could be Larson.
Word is it's Larson.
Really?
I think they're waiting. Yep.
Okay. Interesting. All right, let's get into the race this week. And there's only one driver that all 3 of us were agreed on, and that's no shock. Even though he's 3-1, the clear favorite, double the odds to the second drivers, Harvick and Truex. That's Chase Elliott, who won this race last year and led the most laps as well, 35. He's got 2 wins and 4 races at Watkins Glen. So we've talked about him being one of the best road course drivers out there, Eric. And you only went with 2 drivers, and one of them was Elliott.
Yeah, between him and Truex, it just seems like, was it 7 of the last 8? I think road course races they've won.
You just said, screw it. I'm just going to put a couple grand out there, 1 each on those 2 dudes, and whatever happens.
Make up some ground. Yep. Well, you got to look at, some of these drivers just aren't good road course racers. I mean, they've already admitted that. And by conversation with IndyCar and NASCAR driver James Davison at Indy, for the 500 kind of opened my eyes, like, because I always used to take some, hey, it's a road course race, let's throw some sleepers in. And the way he said there's such a big gap still between the top teams and those mid-level teams that it's just like it's not going to happen. And then you look at the playoffs, very rarely does a non-playoff driver that's still in it win.
You need a wreck. That's it. You need a wreck.
Yeah. Or rain.
Or rain.
So rain might
Fingers
be the equalizer.
crossed.
Yeah. So, I mean, you look at last week, like we talked about the guys that were in the top 10, and Hamlin still won. So the guys find their way to the top still. I mean, Elliott wrecked with, 40 to go in this race last year, and he still came back and won. So I feel like he's got 4 road course wins and 11 tries. He's just 3 straight he's won on road courses. He won at Daytona back in August on the road course. So they're the top 2, and until something else happens, I'm just going to roll with them.
And again, you also went with Truex, who actually hasn't exactly finished well at this track in the 2 races. Why do you think that is? Is that just he's had bad luck in the 2 races, or because we know how good he is?
Bad luck.
Look, Watkins Glen, last 3 races, second, first. Sonoma, last 2 races, first and first. So in the other 5 races at the other 2 tracks, he's got 3 wins and 2 runner-ups, but he hasn't finished in the top 5 at this track in either race. So what's the reason there?
Well, I remember the first year he was leading on the last lap, on the last corner, and Jimmy Johnson wrecked him because he was pushing too hard, thinking he needed a win when he already was in the playoffs at that point, and he wrecked Truex on the last turn while Truex was leading. So it would have been the very worst, the second place finish, which keep the top 2 thing going. But he got wrecked, and he finished, was it 12th or something like that?
14th.
And then last year, I think he had some bad luck again. He was in that top 5 group, and then it was him, Elliott, and Harvick. And I believe his tires just kind of fell off on the last run, and he didn't need to win anyways. He was already solidly to the next round. So I just think instead of pushing it. But this year, he's 32 points to the good. He's good. I don't think anybody's bumping him out at this point. And I think they've got a car capable of winning on road courses. And he said that on the call today. He feels like multiple wins are coming. They're there, and this could be a start.
All right. Meanwhile, CJ, you and I went with Harvick at 6-1. And we also went with Elliott, but we both went with Harvick, who was 3rd in this race last year, 2nd to Elliott, leading 34 laps. So I mean, with Harvick, it's he hasn't won in a couple of races, so you just figure, okay, maybe he's going to go out there and get another win. He's overdue.
It was really the 34 laps led in this race last year that led me to not want to leave him out of my choices.
Especially at 6-1.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
And he's not that he's okay at the road course races, but he's not like Elliott or Truex. Hamlin hasn't looked good at all at these at this track, and he's 7-1 coming off a win. So I think we've all said pass on Denny Hamlin this week, and I'm not surprised that we did that.
Yeah, it's really back-to-back races, and then especially a spot where, as you said, he hasn't. I don't even think he's got a top 10 here, does he? No, he does not.
No.
So, I mean, it's tough enough races in the playoffs when you come into a track where you haven't performed well at. Sure, Hamlin can get it done, but is it likely? Probably not. He does have the pole though, so he'll lead some laps, I would guess, unless Elliott gets him into turn 1.
I'm the only. I'm the only one that went with Bowyer. Which I was surprised at, but he hasn't had a top 5 since late May. But he was 4th in this race last year. He was 3rd in both stages. He was 3rd in the 2018 race here, and he was 3rd and 5th in both stages. He's got a Sonoma win where he has 8 top 5s in 14 races. So, yeah, I kind of figured that Bowyer was worth a few bucks. How come you guys decided to pass, Eric?
I almost did. I was going to Bowman, but I just wasn't. I wanted to go all in on the two favorites, Elliott and Truex, and like you said, Bowyer hasn't had a top 5, and it seems like forever. 22 races, and he hasn't won in 88 races, and it just seems like if you look at the playoff standings and the way things are standing right now coming into this, there's a reason the guys that haven't won in a while are below the cut line, and the guys that have won recently are. It just seems like it's all playing out the way it's supposed to.
If Bowyer wins, who could he screw?
Between Logano and Bowman would be my.
And you mentioned Bowman because I did take Bowman. He was second in this race last year, fourth in 2018, and he's on a run of 5 top 10s in his last 7, including 2 top 5s.
Yeah, he's going to be. I think to me, Logano may be the biggest because he's better on road courses than Logano is right now. 1 point separate him. So to me, there's a couple of races within the race this week. It's Bowman and Logano. Nobody wants to fall to the 8th spot. Right now, Logano's got it, but there's a 1 point difference because if Kyle, Dylan, Boyer, or Almirola win, somebody's getting bumped out, and it's going to be the person on 8th. Yep. So it's between those two. I mean, Truex is 11 points clear of that. He's good at this track, too. I think he's going to be just fine. But
who's that?
Yeah.
Who's going to be good? Who did you just say?
Truex. He's
Truex,
plus 32.
Okay.
Yeah, so everybody else is so far even more above that. So I don't see anybody else falling to that spot. Plus, right here, since 2014, this format started, this last race of the second round, every year but one, somebody has bumped their way in for the round of 8. So trends say that's going to happen.
Interesting.
And Larson, oddly enough, in 2017 was 29 points to the good, and he still missed it. He blew an engine early. Because Chase Elliott was 15 points down last year. He didn't win Kansas. He finished second, and he got by because Kozlowski finished 19th. Kyle was 26 to the good in 2014, and he missed it. So nobody's safe.
Who's in that spot right now?
The drop zone spot?
Like around 25 to 30 points ahead right now.
Just Bowman and Logano.
Those are everybody the only two.
Else.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everybody else looks pretty good.
Yeah.
The top 6.
It'd be historical for somebody.
Okay.
I think the most somebody that came back was
I like that word.
Slaps.
Yeah. It would be the most is 19 points down to get your way in. So
that'll be historical.
It would be historical if one of these guys can get in. But it could happen. I mean, what if it rains? I mean, Austin Dillon
I hope so.
have said they're not good at road courses, but hey, rain is, as they say in IndyCar and F1, rain is the great equalizer.
Well,
so,
yeah, but it never rains and they race in NASCAR. So
that's the thing that's going to get people up in arms because they were promoting, hey, if it rains, we're going to race. But if it's puddle, you can't race in puddles because they don't have tread on their tires.
They'll come up with something. Puddles. Yep. There's a lightning bolt. 500
Boyer
miles away.
Boyer said he's going to clog all the storm drains around the track so it puddles and it floods and they can't race until Monday when it's dry. So, hey, here's another factor though. If it does, we've got those spray trucks that on like dirt tracks that put moisture. Can we just water the track down even if it's completely sunny? Let's water that track down and let's
Absolutely.
Let's see. Hey, it will spice the race up. Rain racing, it sucks for fans to sit outside in it. But for us on TV watching this thing, it will be a treat if it rains.
Well, what is the fan situation?
They can come. I think like 10,000, something like that, 17,000. They, I think from here on out, fans are allowed finally.
All right.
So.
And let's see, CJ, you took Kyle, the only one. I don't know what you're doing with Kyle again. You got something going on there. Kyle.
No, it's the exact reasons that Eric just said. There has always been somebody that has dropped out. There's been somebody that's come from behind and worked their way in. He has 2 DNFs, never finished. He's got multiple road course wins, so we don't really know what he can do here. He is completely up against the ropes. And
so he's that
if you're
guy.
Just going to throw a couple bones. If you're just going to throw a couple bones at somebody, he's got more on his.
That would be ironic, wouldn't it?
He's 2.
If he could actually do that.
He's 2 of the ends the win list. He's 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 6 years somebody bumped their way in. Kyle holds 2 of them.
That is the only reason I took him.
So Kyle has bumped drivers out twice.
Yep.
Okay.
He's done it twice. So he's not. It's not like he's phased by this moment. I agree with CJ. I don't.
Oh, he's a good road course driver.
Jimmy Johnson,
yes,
that's okay.
And remember, he was good in Daytona. Wasn't he good in Daytona? I think that was.
Yes.
I was covering St. Louis for IndyCar, so I missed the Daytona road course. Or no, it's the day before the 500 stuff going on.
He had that. He had those bad breaks in the Daytona road course because I remember taking him in that race, like early on. Like he was pushing it early. I forget something. Something happened to the car.
Wasn't he like second
Yeah.
or third when he had a pit for that? So yeah, I mean, he's capable.
Yeah. All right. As far as Penske, Blaney's 10-1. He won this race in 2018, but they're not going to win that team right now. Kozlowski Logano, and nobody went with Logano, and he's going the wrong way too, results wise. Kozlowski, who only has one top 5 at his last 10 races, but that was a win at Richmond, a dominating win at Richmond. 5th in this race last year. He was 6th and 2nd in the stages. In 2018, he led 29 laps before wreck, and that was the second most laps to Kyle Larson. And so he has a pretty good history here over a couple of races, but he's never won a road course race. Even though he has 4 top 5s at Watkins Glen and has performed pretty well here. So you guys think maybe it's time for Kozlowski to win his first road course race? Maybe.
Anything can happen with the rain. Yeah, and he's one of those guys that with the 29 laps led 3 in last year's race, he's going to be in the top 5, top 10. So anything can happen. We saw, as Eric talked about, Truex getting knocked out on the last corner at these tracks. So.
Okay. And as far as some of the other long shots, Byron, he's got 3 top 5s in his last 6. 6th in this track last year, led 23 laps, led the second stage, but nobody took him. I put a few bucks on Buescher, DiBenedetto, and Jones. DiBenedetto basically because, and Jones, just because of karma. But Jones really because, well, DiBenedetto karma, Jones because it doesn't matter what's going on. He just keeps finishing in the top 5 and screwing Eric. So I figured, well, why not?
Yep. Keep it going.
Yeah, maybe something will happen and he'll win.
Sticking together right now. Yeah. Hey, DiBenedetto, I believe, was top 11 all 3 road courses last year. He's a pretty good road course driver.
He's very good on the road courses.
Yeah. And Buescher is also pretty hot right now. Should have had 3 top 10s in a row. So I just figured, why not a few bucks on those drivers if there's a big wreck and maybe the rain comes out like you said. Other than that, last quickly, any other drivers that you guys were considering as a long shot? Top long shot, Eric.
It'd be tough. I would probably say Byron. What is Byron?
22-1.
He's better than I thought he was. Maybe Christopher Bell. He's Toyota. They seem to have good packages on road courses. That 95 car, like I just said, top 11, all 3 races last year. He can just go for broke. It doesn't matter what he does now. So I'd say maybe Bell. He could steal a road course
DJ?
one.
Christopher Bell
too. Okay.
Eric took him. He wasn't going there to begin with, but I was immediately going to say Christopher Bell. He's been really good on the road courses. He's been surprising on a number of occasions. He can go for broke. I would go with Christopher Bell if you're looking for a long shot.
And lastly, by the way, and maybe this comes into play, and that is that we haven't had a road course race this year, right? Have we? That's right. That doesn't count because that was a piece of crap. But no practice and qualifying this week. So that might come into play a little bit, especially if there's rain. Wouldn't that be nice? No practice, no qualifying, and some rain.
Well, here's like Kyle said today, too. The reason they're so – I mean, Toyota's president straight called their teams out yesterday. It was like, it's unacceptable. It's not good that we've only won 8 times. And he was mad on the call, and Kyle was kind of asked about it, and he's like, it could be, you can point to performance, but no practice, no qualifying. We're just basing everything off simulation work. We don't have practice, and we could be guessing wrong. We could be doing better lately because we're guessing right, but nobody simulated a rain race.
There you go.
That is going to literally throw a wrench, and that's what he's driving. Like, I've never driven in the rain before. I don't know. Like, maybe like the ultimate long shot is going to be someone like a James Davison, who, like he said, a smaller team, they don't have a lot of chance, but these guys could all take each other out. That dude has a lot of experience in the rain. He's not going to be scared. That could equal him up there, and at that point, all bets are completely off. I think that if it rains, it's going to be wilder than a Daytona or Talladega type of race because you don't know what to expect in it. So let's fingers crossed that it rains, but not too hard to cause
exactly. Pain. But we don't get that lucky as NASCAR fans.
No,
we won't count on it.
No.
All right. Race review online. You'll be busy all weekend.
Yep, doing luckily it's only a 2-day weekend, Xfinity Saturday and Cup on Sunday, and shouldn't be a whole lot of newness coming out now as everybody's focusing this point on the round of 8 and the other guys just going for wins. So it's kind of what we're focusing now, just championship and race recaps.
CJ, RotoWire?
Rotowire.com. We've just got a 2-race weekend this week, so we'll have a fantasy preview up for Xfinity and a fantasy preview for Cup, and then we'll have the Cup recap on
and next
Monday.
week is what? Where?
Vegas.
Kansas. Off to
Kansas,
Kansas.
yes.
Yep.
Next Sunday. Guys, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next Thursday.